All right. Want to get started today. Let me go ahead and click on slideshow. Uh, make sure this comes up. Go ahead and resume. All right. Welcome to today's office hours. For the last couple weeks, I've been getting a lot of questions about Zapier. Been referring people to some previous documentation and videos and stuff that we've had, and kind of realized Zapier has updated their interface, and things just didn't quite make as much sense. So today I wanted to spend just a little bit of time on going through some of the updated Zapier integrations that we have, and help you guys understand really the power of what you can do with integrating applications with Realvolve. And this is something that, whether you're a very basic user or a more advanced user, this is something that can be very beneficial to you in multiple ways. So we're going to talk about that today, and just spend some time diving into some of the basics of Zapier, make sure you guys understand it, but also show you step by step how to set up a Zap, especially with their new integration interface and stuff. So for those that don't know me, my name is Mark Stepp. I am the Chief Innovation Officer here at Realvolve. Been doing real estate technology for the past 33 years, helping real estate agents understand the why in what they're doing with technology, and building a sustainable business using automation. So making sure that you guys get what you need there. The agenda, like I said, we're going to really talk about some basics about what is a zap, what is a trigger, what is an action. These are three words that you may know, and if you do, great. But we want to take you through, for those that don't know, take you through what it is, kind of some of the setup process. And it's not hard, it's just a process, and really the first time you do it, it's a little bit more process. Once you have it set up one time, then it makes it a whole lot easier. And then just creating a Zap for Realvolve. Talk about some filters and stuff, but I don't really want to get into that. It's a little bit more advanced, and then we'll have some time for Q&A as well. Anytime that we have these office hours, we do record them, so you can go back, review them. You can go out to realvolve.com/office hours and see, get access to those. It's also out on our YouTube channel, so you can certainly go and look in the office hours playlist of our YouTube channel. Certainly like, thumbs up, and subscribe to that if you would. All right, so some basics. Just what is Zapier? What is a Zap? And I'm going to throw some terminology. I just want to make sure that we don't get lost in the terminology. So one of the things that's important to understand is software as a service. This has been around for several years now, but make sure that if you see the word SaaS, software as a service, it's really just an online program, online software. Realvolve is a SaaS program. Google Sheets is a SaaS program. Google Docs, many, in any application that you go into your browser and load it, it's typically a SaaS program. So that's one important thing. Anytime you're going to be doing anything with Zapier, it's typically integrating applications that are SaaS, software as a service. They reside out on the internet. Zapier itself is a SaaS program. It's just a matter of it's used to integrate multiples. Anytime you are signing up for additional software, if you're signing up for any kind of monthly thing, Canva, things like that, those all are SaaS companies, and they typically do have integrations with Zapier, which is great. you might want to, if you're talking to anybody about anything, and say, hey, do they integrate with Zapier? Because if they do, typically you can do some really amazing things. So if they do, they'll be able to integrate with Realvolve typically in some form or fashion. If they don't, if they don't have their own Zap, or don't have integration with Zapier, then there are some ways around it. You can use webhooks and parsers. Those are much more advanced type things. I don't really want to get into those, but it's just something to think about whenever you're looking at software as a service. Just check to see, does it have the ability to integrate with Zaps, which is a good thing. So Zapier is an application, a piece that has basically three things that it does. It acts as a trigger. It acts as an action. It can do something. So a trigger kind of acts on something. It has an action which actually does something, and then there is the ability to do some filtering or searching, and we're not going to get into that very much. We're basically going to concentrate on the trigger and the action. But every Zap that you do basically will have these two elements: trigger and action. The filter option is optional. So what is a trigger? A trigger is something that makes something happen. If you enter data into a spreadsheet, you enter data into a database field, something you did physically or some kind of automation that happened can trigger a Zap. It can do something. Maybe you received an email, maybe you received an SMS, maybe you clicked a button. There's lots of different possibilities, but the trigger is the thing that starts it off. Okay, just something happened. We don't know necessarily what it is, or it could be lots of different things, but it definitely is something that happens, and we can quantify it. We can figure out that something did happen. The other thing that Zapier does is it acts as an action. It can actually do something automatically. It can import data. It can update existing data. It can start workflows, create content, send content. There's lots of things, lots of actions that can happen. So something triggers, something performs, basically. So something happens and something you do something automatically. This pair, this combination of trigger and action is what makes Zapier so powerful, because now if there's some kind of something that's happening on your website, there's some kind of something happening in your email and you're not around, you can actually have a trigger that triggers on that something, and then it performs the action to do something for you. Okay. So that's kind of the importance thing on this. What you can do is go out to Zapier.com, and whenever you go out to Zapier.com, their interface, whenever you log in, I am logged in. It says Welcome Realvolve. That's just our Zapier account name. You'll see that there are a couple items up in the upper area that are kind of important that I want you to see. Number one is the search. If, again, you're looking at software, going to subscribe to some software, you want to do something, maybe print postcards or whatever, you could go out to Zapier, click on search, and you can search for that company name and see if they have a Zap. You can go out and just explore and see all the different applications that Zapier does integrate with. There's 5,000 or 6,000 applications that integrate with Zapier, which is phenomenal. It's amazing. So between those two, you should be able to find what you want. Now, even if you don't find it, it may be worth calling the application's support team or whatever and seeing if they have a private or beta Zap. So whenever people are setting these up, they go into different phases. They start off with a private beta Zap, and you have to be invited to actually see it. Then once you get enough people that use it, like it, promote it, or whatever, then it can be turned into a public Zap, and that's where you'll find it in the search and in the Explorer area. Just because it's not here doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So, but if they have made it public, it will find it very easily. You can go out to Zapier.com, click on those, or you can go out to Zapier.com/apps, get to the same basic list. This shows you kind of the list of all the different applications that are out there. Google Sheets, there's Gmail, Slack, there's all kinds of applications that use Zapier in one form or another. It's either trigger or a action or search, filter, or all three. So you can go in there, you can typically click on it, find more detail, view the profile of those applications to see what all they do. Now, whenever you scroll down through the information on there, there is a section here called supported triggers and actions, and you can click on triggers and just see the triggers. You can click on the actions just to see the actions, or you can see both. And this just kind of gives you a list, and you may have to click on the view more or load more to see all the different things that it can do. In the realm of Google Sheets, the only thing that really matters is this new and updated spreadsheet row. Whenever a new row, we're going to use this today to actually bring in some leads, and I will show you how to do that very easily. But it's just going to be this one trigger out of all these different things that it does that we really care about. Okay, but knowing that there's lots of things that it can do can be extremely powerful. Maybe you want to do some kind of really phenomenal thing, and it takes a special type of trigger to do that. A lot of times they will have those out there. Whenever you go out and look at Realvolve, we have a trigger and we have an action. We have both. So the trigger part of this is if in Realvolve you go in and you create a new contact, you add Joe Smith or whatever, it can trigger an action, trigger the trigger part of this. We also have an action, meaning if something else triggers, you want to bring data into Realvolve, you can use the action to create a contact. So these two items are different, even though it says new contact and create contact, that almost seems like it's the same thing. Technically, one of these is the actual trigger, where if you create a new contact inside Realvolve, this will trigger. If you want to create a new contact outside of Realvolve, you would use the action. So there's that. And I didn't say it earlier, if you guys have any questions as we're doing this, something doesn't make sense, either hit chat or just unmute yourself, and certainly we'll try to answer whatever question you've got. Any questions so far? No flashing mics. Okay, so let's go ahead and go on. So Zapier, as a SaaS application, has to make money in some ways, but they do offer a free account, a free version that will allow you to do things. It's limited, but it at least gets you started. And in many cases, for many real estate agents, I found that the free account works perfectly fine. There are some things that are important to know about it, about the free, what it can't do. But the main thing that it can do is you can set up this is straight from the website as of today. There are different plans. The free plan is, for individuals starting out in automation, no cost. You can do up to 100 tasks per month. So every month you'll get a new allotment of tasks. And a task basically is this: a trigger and an action. It goes through the process. So if you have a website that collects leads and those leads are used to, a new lead comes into the website, it creates an action to go into Realvolve. If you have less than 100 leads coming in any given month, you don't necessarily need the anything but the free version of Zapier, which is great. You can create an unlimited number of zaps. There used to be some limits on how many zaps you can run and a few other things, but basically you can have an unlimited number of zaps, but you can only run those zaps up to 100 times. Each, at a total, if you've got 10 different zaps, 10 different triggers and actions, and one of those does 90 of them, then another zap can only have 10 for that month. So just a total of 100 runs of a trigger and an action. It doesn't matter which trigger action it is. It is limited to just trigger and action whenever you're using the free version. If you're using a paid version, you can do multi-step options, you can do filters and other things, but for the free version, that's that. The advantages of a paid version is not only that you can do the two-step process, but you can do additional steps, unlimited technically in what you're doing. You can format data, you can do conditional if then else things, some really sophisticated things. We're not going to cover all that, but one thing that I do want you to understand is if there is a zap, and Facebook leads is one of them, there's a few others. A majority of the zaps that are out there can be used with the free account, but some of them, if they have the word premium on them, like Facebook lead ads, you would have to have a paid version in order to use it. No big deal, but if you're not using that, but if you are using Facebook to get leads and you want those leads brought in, you do have to have a paid version. The prices change all the time. So I used to put the prices on there, certainly go out to the pricing website and see what plans are out there. I think the lowest one is like $20, something like that a month, which, if you think about, if you're getting a lot of leads, the time that it would take to manually enter those leads, start the process, the workflows, the different things, it'll save you so much time. The $20 is definitely worth it. But, you can potentially just use the free version. Hopefully that all made sense. So how does it work? Just as a quick visual, a lead fills out a form on your website or an open house form using Google Forms. So we're going to actually use this as an example for example purposes. But in some form or fashion, you've got lead information. In the case of the open house Google form, it takes that information and it's putting it into Google Sheets. So what we'll do is we'll take that lead data, we'll hit Zapier as a Google Sheet. It could be Facebook leads, it could be a webhook, it could be email, Zillow. There's lots of different possibilities of getting those leads. In this case, we're going to use that as a trigger and then take the data that's collected from that form and actually send it into Realvolve. And then as the action. So we got the trigger and we got the action. Then basically what it does is it can either create it or update a contact record. It can run workflows. It can make sure that it's assigned to the right record owner whenever you're creating a new record. It can update source. Where did the source come from? or what was the source of this lead, assign tags. There's other fields. There's lots of information that can be filled in. And we're going to cover all of that in this. One thing to know is that we do have a way to prevent, to kind of the best ability, to prevent duplicates on leads that are coming in. We do that using the home mobile phone and the home email address. Those are two fairly unique types of fields. Typically a person will have a mobile phone and it's their mobile phone or their email address. So if they fill it in on one form or another, typically it's the same one. It's possible that they put in one mobile phone and an email in one form, and then they decide they have a different mobile phone and or email on a different one. But if either one of those matches, if you're collecting the mobile phone or the email, and if it's basically found, it'll go ahead and update that contact record. If it's not found, it'll create a new contact. So we do the process of creating and preventing duplicates kind of as one big fail swoop process. There are some apps out there that will have a separate create and a separate update type of action. We do that basically automatically for you by isolating the information in the mobile and the email, and if either one of those match, either update the contact, or if they don't match, create the contact. Just let you know that. Now, we do also have within Realvolve, we have a trigger where if you're entering a new contact, it will trigger and send that data out to some application using the trigger and then whatever action that's out there. Year before last, we actually implemented, and I don't know if I put it out here. Yeah, I did. We also implemented a webhook action inside of an activity. And what does that mean? Well, on any kind of workflow that you create, you have activities, and in that activity, down lower right-hand corner, you can create an action. An action can be a webhook, which will allow you to send data from Realvolve, from either a contact, a property, or a transaction, and send that data for that record out to some application. So just know that there are really two different types of triggers that Realvolve does have. The create a new contact, which is a built-in trigger for Zapier as a trigger, but you can also create a Realvolve trigger that actually triggers as an action on an activity, so that if you complete that activity, it'll run the action for you. It'll run that, or actually run that trigger for you, so that the webhook then grabs that data for that record and then can send it to lots of different things. And we've got several different videos that whenever we implemented this on how to use the webhook. You can send data to Google Sheets, you could send it to Handwritten, Delighted. There's lots of different services out there that could either print cards for you, that can check for what was the quality of your service, to get ratings. There's just lots of different things that you can do to update data and send that data somewhere to get something done for you using an action inside of a workflow. And that is extremely powerful, but we've got lots of videos on how to do that. We're not going to cover that today, but just understand that that is out there. We do have some predetermined Zap templates, and you can go out to our help. You can do help.realvolve.com. You can just search for Zap templates and it'll bring up a list. You can click on that list and actually, let me just take you, let me move this out of the way. Here, this is the help. Basically, lots of different, if there's applications that you want to bring data from something into Realvolve, there's different types of zaps that are already created. You can just click on them and it'll kind of create the basics for you. There is some filling in on your side, but it will take you through that process. We'll actually do the full process, but just know that some of these things are actually pre-built and you can just have it done for you. Okay, so we're going to talk about connecting Realvolve. Oh, actually, we have a chat. Hang on a second. Are those videos new? Last time we looked at this, there's very little help to accomplish zaps. Oh yeah, there's lots of them out there. Let me go out real quick to realvolve.com's playlist. So if you go out to office hours, you can just click on this, watch on YouTube. We've got lots of things out there, but if you go out to the YouTube version, and we're just going to snip it. You can go out to our Realvolve.
People ask us all the time, what
piece here, and we've got playlists, and in these we've got lots of different options. There is like webhook training. This webhook training piece right here has lots of different ways to use webhooks. Those that we were talking about. So there's probably 10 or so of those. Actually, 9 of those. So definitely look in there if you're wanting to see how to use webhooks. Very powerful thing in the actions. In our office hours area, there's 70 some odd videos of things, and you can search. If you just do a search for the Zapier in here, it should do Zapier.
I'm looking. I couldn't find that in your Apple Music library.
Oh.
You can ask me to play a radio station or ask for your music on a different app.
Oops. Nothing like an automated voice. All right. It's been a year or more since. Yeah. So we've got several videos out there. Definitely take a look out there, Mark. And if you have any problems, send me an email, mark@realvolve.com, and definitely I can point you in the right direction. So to set up, one of the things that you do have to know in order to connect Realvolve with Zapier is the Zapier API key. So whenever you go into Realvolve and you click into settings, over on the left-hand side, there's an integrations area. Whenever you click on integrations, there is a Zapier API key. This API key, you will just click on the little copy button. It's marked out. You don't want to share. This is something you don't want to share with other people because people could send data to you and you don't want them to. So don't ever share this key. It's why it's blurred out. But you would copy that, and we'll go through a little step where it's going to require this. So just know where it's at under the settings, integrations, Zapier API key. It'll show a big long string of characters, and you just copy that, and it will allow you to copy your clipboard, and then you can just paste that in whenever you go through the Zap process. And we're going to show that here in just a little bit. Some other things to think about before you actually create any kind of Zap. Number one, make sure, if you haven't already, you probably already do, just make sure you've got your sources set up. That's under settings, contact source types. if you're going to be doing any kind of open house form, make sure you have a source called open house or something like that. If you're using it for other things, Zillow, realtor.com, whatever, identifying where did this name come as a source can be extremely important whenever you're trying to identify what services am I doing and using that are producing leads. And knowing those sources is important. So make sure that you've got your different sources set up for whatever you're going to do with the Zap. The other thing to think about, and it's certainly not necessary, especially if you're just a single agent, you don't have to worry about it. If you're part of a team and you are maybe the lead maker, the drip builder, whatever, you may be allotting out leads either in like a round robin format or some kind of option where you're giving the leads out to your teammates, and you may want to use some kind of round robin or a multi-owner type ownership piece, letting them claim their leads. But setting up record owner assignments, and I'll show you where that's done here in a second. The other thing is make a plan. My MAP acronym that I use, make a plan. Make sure that you've got your workflows already set up, because you're going to be able to, whenever a lead comes in, select which workflow do you want it to start. So you might just have a generic catch-all, this is how I handle leads. Certainly that's fine. But you may have some special purpose workflows for open houses. I do certain things based off of a lead coming from an open house. I do certain things based off of leads coming from Zillow or realtor.com. So you may have different workflows set up for different purposes based off of either how you got them or where you got them. Certainly do that. And also just decide, how are you going to be tagging these? Again, making a plan, figuring out ahead of time, how do I deal with these leads once I get them? If I tag them a certain way, maybe I want to be able to search them a certain way. So certainly make a plan on how to use tags. If you already have these set up, great. You don't have to worry about it, but definitely think about those if you don't have any of those particularly set up. On the contact source types, kind of showing you the screen on this, you can go under your settings, contact source types, and we've got a whole bunch of kind of master contact source types that you can pick from. You can create your own, but making sure that you've got them set up. If you're doing an open house, have an open house source. Make sure that you're getting that in there. The record owner assignments, again, if you have teams, going under settings, and then there's, I didn't have to always scroll down. There's a record owner assignment option down below, and then you can assign basically whenever a lead comes in, who gets that lead. And you can do it as a kind of a round robin option or a multi-user where multiple people get assigned ownership all at one time. So maybe you got 3 people on your team, and maybe you got more than that, but certain of those you want to assign certain types of people, leads coming in to a certain group of your team members. You can set those up and make those available. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. Kind of the how it works. We've got enough time to kind of go through this. We're going to do an open house registration. What we're going to do is we're going to go out to forms.google.com. We're going to build kind of a quick questionnaire, build some fields that has questions. We're going to take those responses and we're going to make sure that it gets put into a Google Sheet. And that's actually what Zapier triggers on, is the Google Sheet trigger part. There are some restrictions in the settings of that Google form I will make sure that you guys are aware of. And then go ahead and fill out a sample contact just to make sure it works. Now that sample, whenever you click on the little eyeball, I'll show that's where that's at. That gives you a URL that you could, if you wanted to, use within a QR code. So some agents will take, for an open house registration, they'll take an iPad and let you fill it out. Some agents will just say, hey, scan this QR code, fill out the information, and be entered into our drawing, or whatever. People like free stuff, whatever you want to produce there. But getting those leads in some form or fashion is a good way of doing it. And you can have them scan a QR code that takes them to the URL to fill out the form on their phone or whatever, and fill it out. Once that's filled out, then we're going to create a Zap that uses the trigger action, the trigger being the Google Sheets, the action being Realvolve, and we'll test it, save it, and turn it on, and then kind of show how that works. So let's do this real quick. So you will go out to Zapier.com, and you do have to have a sign up process if you don't already have that. I've got mine in different folders and stuff, so you can kind of see it. I've got lots of different ones. Well, we're actually going to create a brand new one. So we can click on the little create button. There are some other create buttons. You can do it in multiple places. There are some new AI features that will go through some of the creation process for you. And certainly you can do that. In this case, I just want to create a new Zap. And here's part of the AI. It says, hey, I can help you through this. What do you want to do? So you could say, I wanted to create a Zap to take data from Google Sheets to Realvolve, and then it would find the trigger and the action and kind of do some setup for you. That can be successful and it can be a challenge. I'm not going to do that right now. We're just going to step through it manually, but certainly take a look at that and play with that at some point. We're going to go through, first we're going to create a trigger. Actually, I guess before we do that, let's go back to the Google Forms. First thing was the forms. So I'm going to create a blank form. You go out to forms.google.com. We're going to create a blank form, and we're going to give this form a name. I'm going to say Realvolve Open House Leads, whatever. Actually, I don't want just Realvolve Open House. Okay. So in this, there are some things that I'm going to want to make sure that I collect. And so that's just the title part. And I can come up here and click into the title of the form. It'll put in whatever's in there for me. So the first question that we want to create on this form is going to be just first name. I click the first name. It automatically figures out that, hey, it should be a short answer. That's great. You want to add another field. The other field being last name. You could just have full name if you wanted to. I like to have them separated out, just be quite clear. Maybe I want an email address. Short answer. Click on the plus. And I also want a phone. Now, there's a lot to be said for limiting what you collect. You don't want to collect too much information. People don't like to fill out lots of information. But it's certainly something that you can determine yourself what all you want to collect. Now, I will typically recommend that you put in a field called open house address. And the open house address being a multiple choice option, and just go ahead and put in the address, 123 South Main Street. Now, you don't have to have other options. You can just have that one, and maybe even want to have the date on there, 4/17/2024, whatever. you may not want that because I'm actually going to use this data coming in. So maybe I won't have that. It was a spur of the moment thought. But basically put in the address as a radio button here. The choices that you've got as far as drop downs, check boxes, stuff like that. The one thing that this is going to afford us is to have the actual address of the open house as a field that they just click on and make sure that we know which open house they came from. Whenever you use this form over and over again, all you have to do then is just change this address for whichever open house there is. Now, if you're doing multiple open houses on a single day, you might add the other open house. Which one am I attending? And make sure that they select that. That also prompts them to say, hey, you've got another open house? Yeah, hey, you can go out to whatever, and then also drive traffic. So just some thoughts there. The other thing that we are going to want to put on here is maybe a interested time frame, or just time frame, and just do time frame. And in here, I might say something like currently looking 1 to 3 months, 3 to 6 months, and 1 year plus. Yeah. Now, what this obviously does is just gives you the ability to deal with those people that are out further. Maybe you want to start them on a different workflow than this one. If they're currently looking, you may want to be more aggressive, whatever. So just getting some data. So you can add as many different fields that you want to collect. Again, the more fields you collect, the bigger challenge you have collecting that. So make it simple. Don't put too much stuff in there and you'll be better off. Now, there are 3 choices up here at the top. The questions themselves, which is what we just filled out. The responses is where do we want the responses to go? And in this case, the one thing that I want to make sure that we do is link to the Sheets button. So you click on that. It'll say create a new sheet, Realvolve open house responses, and just say create. What that does for you is it goes ahead and it creates an actual Google Sheet with all the fields connected for you. So whenever the form is filled out, it will automatically go into the Google Sheet, which is what we ultimately want it to happen. The last thing that we want to do, and it kind of depends on how your Google accounts are set up, whether they're corporate or they're just public, whatever. You may want to go in to the settings area. And in here, there's a responses area. Because I'm using a corporate Realvolve account, we can restrict who can fill this out. Is it just the Realvolve people? They would have to log in, or do I want anybody to use it? Turn that off if you want anybody to use it. If you're in a corporate setting, make sure that that's available. Otherwise, when they go to click on it, it'll say, either log in or not allow them to do it. There are other different types of options. Make questions required by default. So turn this on. They're all required. You can make them individually, whatever. So however you want to set this up, certainly do. But definitely you want to make sure that if you have that restriction on, that you turn that off. Now, once you've got that, you've got your forms filled out, you've got it set up for Google Sheets, and you've got your settings turned on, what you can do is use this little preview button. And I do want to say, you can colorize this, set different themes, make, whatever colors and things that you want it to do. Certainly deck this out however you want to theme it out. But once you get it set up the way you want, then you can click on the little preview button. What that does then is that brings up the form. Now, this URL, this is the URL that we can use for QR codes. So you can copy that, take it to a website that creates QR codes for free. Do not pay for things like that. Use that URL, print up a QR code, put it on your wall or whatever, and then they can fill it out and make it available. In this case, now because I'm also the creator of this, it's gone ahead and put this on here. This will typically not be on there, but in either case, just fill out an information piece here. So I'm going to say George Watkins, George at gmail.com, phone 117-555-1234. And then actually I want to make something. I may have done that one before. I'll put in a weird number just so it doesn't look. I'm using some of these. Actually, let me go ahead and just make this George 23. I'm wanting unique data so that it'll create a new record. Sometimes I'll put in the same information. But here's that open house. This is where they can select it. The advantage of selecting it is I now know which open house that they attended, and that information can then be put into Realvolve, and I'll show you how that's done. Time frame. Are you currently looking 1 to 3 months, whatever? So, let them pick what they're looking for and then submit. Once they submit that, then that data, if we come over here to the Google Sheet, it shows up immediately into the Google Sheet. Each time a new person registers, it creates a new row. Every new row is what we want to trigger on in our Zap. So now let's come back over here to Zapier. Go to Zapier.com. We create the Zap, and now we're ready to do the setup process. I'm going to say trigger. I want to trigger on what? I want to trigger on Google Sheets. And over here on the right-hand side, and this is what's changed a lot. I wanted to make sure that everybody saw the changes here. The way this, from the videos that we had in the past, this is all kind of changed out. So in this case, Google Sheet is the trigger that we want. What event do we want to do? Now, these are all the different triggers that are available for a Google Sheet. In this case, we want the new or updated spreadsheet row. Like I said, every time a new form is filled out, it goes in, it creates a new row. So that's what we want, new or updated row. It's also an instant. I don't know if you saw that. It does say instant. So what it does is, as soon as that form gets filled out, it instantly triggers the Zap and goes in immediately. Sometimes things are polled and it's like every 15 minutes or something. If it has the word instant on it, that's a good thing. The other thing that you have to do is set up is, which account. So the account in this case, for me, I would come in here and I would select one of my accounts or connect a new account. For you guys, you won't have anything if you've not done this before, so you're going to want to connect a new account, log into your Google account, as it'll have you pop up and log in and pick all the different stuff. Once you do that, then it will allow you then to select it. In this case, I just want to go ahead and use my Realvolve Google account. So we're all good there. And now I want to come over here to the trigger. So there are some things that we need to know about the new record. We need to know which record or which sheet is it. So in this case, the Google Sheet, we click on the little drop down here and we can go through, and you'll see right here, it lists them by newest at the top. So if I just created, which I did just create this Realvolve Open House piece, Realvolve Open House, I can select that from the list of sheets. Inside that sheet, down here at the bottom, you have a an actual spreadsheet, and you can have multiple spreadsheets. You can click on the little plus and it'll let you add more pieces to that. But in this case, the tab on this, the sheet on this, is just form response 1. Form responses 1. So I come back over here, and on the worksheet itself, there'll be a form responses 1, which is that form. There was only one on there, so you can select that. You have the option of saying, I want to trigger on a specific column. We don't need that. You can just leave all that, so everything else is fine. And then just click on continue. So what it then does is say, okay, hey, we need to test this. Let's test it, test the trigger. And what it does then is it says, hey, we've got a record. Inside that record is George Watkins. Here's his email, here's his phone number, the open house address. There's that address that was selected, the time frame, and any other fields that you may have. In this case, we want to go ahead and continue with the selected record. We need some kind of sample record to go through this process of creating the Zap. So we're going to go ahead and select that sample. And it is important that you did fill out that form ahead of time. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a sample and you can't make the next connection. So now we want the action. The action in this case is for Realvolve. Earlier I was talking to you about invites. If maybe there's not a public one, they may have a private one. This was an invite for our beta one, showing on my list. That won't be on your list, but basically you can choose Realvolve. And in here, we want to do the action that's available to create a contact. So I click on create a contact. I now need to know which account. And I could be clicking on the little continue button and it'll go through each one of these. I just have the habit of clicking on the tab at the top. Which account do I want to select from? Now, this is where we had to know in Realvolve this API key. So at this point, if you've not set this up, you may go back to Realvolve, go to the settings, integrations, copy that Zapier key, and then you can click on choose account, choose the Realvolve account that you want. In this case, there may be no options, and we've done this with multiple accounts in Realvolve. So I have one already set up here for, actually, there should just be a regular training. Yeah, training.realvolve.com. This is the one that I use typically, but you can click on this connect a new account. It'll pop up and say, hey, I need to create the connection. I need you to give me the Realvolve API key. And this is where you would paste in that API key from over here. Okay. Once you do that, then you can, and hit it back behind here. Once you fill that in, then you can say yes, make the connection, and then it will go ahead and create an account that looks like this for you, and then you can just pick from it. So I'm just going to click on the one that we had on there until I've got 64 zaps already on this account. I use it for a lot of things. And then click on continue. Now what it's going to do then is say, okay, here's the Realvolve fields. These are the fields that you can fill in. What do you want to fill in? What do you want to pull from this data? Well, from the spreadsheet, I need to get the name. In this case, I'm going to choose 2 fields. And I did this on purpose to show you that you can do what I call word math, where I can say first name, George, and then I want to put a space in between the first name, and I want to choose the last name. So I'm actually building the value that goes into the full name field out of multiple fields that are in here. George Watkins is going to be what's filled in, but there is a space between those. It's important to have that space. Otherwise, it will put everything all into the first name field. So be cautious of that. You can fill out title, company, home address. There's lots of fields that you can fill out. Remember, we talked about the mobile phone being a key. So in this case, I want to pick the phone number, and hopefully it's their mobile phone. You might have specified mobile phone in the form. And then the home email is also a key. So if either or both of those are unique, then it will create a new contact. If whenever it goes to add those, if it finds either one of those, it will update an existing contact, whichever one it finds with either of those. So an important distinction. You can put in some work information, whatever. The tags, going back to make a plan. What kind of tag do you want to put in here? You can put in virtually anything. But one thing that I did was I said I wanted to know what their time frame was. Well, I'm going to use word math again, and I'm going to say time frame, colon, and then I'm going to choose 1 to 3 months, the field that they selected out, which is the time frame. Again, this is going to use word math, and it's going to build a single tag that has the time frame, colon, and then the value they put in there. If I want additional tags, I can put in a comma and then put in other things. Maybe I wanted to do some kind of other neighborhood tag or something like that. You could certainly add tag items. Because you would probably use this over a period of time and maybe over multiple open houses, that may not be something that you need, but just be aware that it's there. The source, again, making sure that we have our sources. There's my open house. So I want to make sure that I have selected my open house option. Which workflow do I want to start on new contacts or on updated contacts? So you can choose based off of, is this a new contact or an updated contact? Which workflow do I want to run? So you can certainly pick and choose from that. Say open house, buyer, seller. There's, again, making sure that you have the right one that you want to use. The other thing that we talked about was the round robin options. Now, if you leave this blank, and because I'm using the Realvolve account that is with your API key, it knows by default that you will be the default record owner. So you don't have to fill out anything in record owner. But if you've got a team, you may need to go in there and select your team members if you want a certain person to be assigned. Otherwise, you will you can use one of the round robin options and select them. So that way each new lead would go to a different team member if you want to do that. The last thing that's kind of important that we wanted to do, all these different fields are available. There's one here called interested in property address. This is where we could pull that address from that radio button, the open house address. Select that in there so that whenever they fill out the form, that address goes in there. You might send a text message that says, hey, thanks for visiting us at the open house at whatever address. And it can pull it from that address field. The rest of these, is it a contact record, a person or a company, preferred contact method, all these different things, A, B, C, D, these are all different things that you can fill out if you want. In this case, I'm just going to leave them pretty much how they are. Click on continue. It will then take and kind of show you this information, and then I can do a test. It will take that information and say, hey, we successfully did the process. Great. And then one thing that you may want to do is come up here and give this a name, say Realvolve Open House. I'm going to put this on here. Off the towers, 417, just for my purposes. And then I can come over here and say publish. So now that has gone through the process. It's turned on the Zap and everything's good. Now, one thing to know, this is a feature that is available in Zapier. You could put a bunch of names into a spreadsheet and actually transfer existing data as a bunch of records. You can pull in a bunch of records, use transfer existing data, and it just brings it all in. So that's a potential there. The one advantage of that is if you wanted to use every time you put in a new lead and you wanted to create a workflow, you could certainly do that. We don't allow mass creation of workflows in the main app, but that is one way that you can do it. But be cautious with that, because if you create a bunch of records with a bunch of workflows, it can give you a bunch of challenges in your calendar that you may not actually anticipate. In this case, I'm just going to go to my Zaps and we're good to go. So the last thing that you may want to do is, now that we've got that, let me go back here to Mark. Actually, I thought it would have put it into here. Back to Zaps. These are all off ones. Come back to home. Not sure where it just went. Normally it lists that Zap in the Zaps list. And that would be in here. In my Mark. Oh, there it is. Okay. So it did show it. Just took a little bit to update. Revolve Open House, make sure that it's on. If it's not on, it won't collect data. If you need to turn it off, you can just turn it off here. It won't collect data. So now if we come over here and we submit another name, say Fred Johnson, Fred at jj43.com, 417-444, some number, still that open house. I'm currently looking, and click on submit. Now, it can take a little bit of time to actually do the process, but typically, within a minute or so, it will do it. So I'm going to come over here to my dashboard. And one of the things that I want to do is come over here to my contacts. And you will see whenever the leads come in, it will create a notification up here at the top. I'm going to order this by entry date, descending. And there's the George Watkins. If I come in here to George Watkins, I take a look. There's his name, phone number, email. If I go to the radar, you can see he was placed on that workflow, and I can see, you can see that it did bounce. It's a bad email address. And all the information's on there. If we come down here to details, you'll see that the interested in property address is filled out. And the record owner, I just left it blank, so it was just going to use the record owner for this account, which is Joe Agent. So that's there. Let me just see if let me double check over here. Hey, yeah, Fred Johnson is in here. Normally it's quicker. It just take a little bit of time for it to process through Zapier. But once it zaps in, you've got it and you're good to go. So that is the process from creating the form, getting the zap, and filling in the data. It didn't take that long. The big thing to understand is that it could be lots of different sources. Not just spreadsheets or whatever, but Zillow, Realtor.com, whatever. You can create different stuff. So any questions? I know we're over time. by quite a bit here. But if we've got any Zapier questions, I'll be certainly happy to answer them. Going once, going twice. All right, everybody. Thank you for attending today. If you do have any questions, certainly reach out to me, mark@realvolve.com. I would certainly be happy to answer whatever questions you have. Have a great day, everyone.